Sometimes the way we first look at a set of data can tell a completely misleading story. Today, we're going to untangle time itself to see how a simple snapshot can hide a much more interesting and way more accurate truth that's buried in the numbers.
All right, let's just dive right in with a puzzle. We've got data on a condition. We'll just call it disease Y. Now, looking at a bunch of people at one single moment in time, does this disease actually get better as they get older?
So here's a survey from 2005. And I mean, look at it. The evidence seems crystal clear. For folks in their 30s, about 45 out of 1,000 have it. Fast forward to people in their 70s, and it drops to 27. The conclusion seems totally obvious. As you get older, your chances of having this disease go down. Case closed, right?
Well, if it were that simple, we wouldn't be here. Let's dig in a little bit, because this whole picture is about to get way more complicated.
See, that 2005 survey wasn't a one-off. Researchers have been doing these for decades, 1995, 1985, all the way back to 75. And when we lay all that data out, something really strange starts to pop out.
Every single time, the data tells the exact same weird story. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the world in 1975 or in 2005. It always looks like the disease gets better with age. So this isn't some fluke. It's a consistent and, frankly, pretty baffling pattern.
And this is where it just doesn't add up. Our basic medical understanding tells us that for a lot of chronic conditions, risk is cumulative. It builds up over your lifetime. So how on earth could this disease possibly get better as people get older generation after generation? The data is telling us one thing, but biology seems to be screaming the complete opposite.
So, this is where we get our aha moment. What if the problem isn't the data at all? What if the problem is just the way we've been connecting the dots? Let's try looking at this from a totally new perspective.
The breakthrough comes when we stop thinking about the calendar year of the survey and we start thinking about generations. What happens if we follow groups of people who are all born around the same time as they move through their lives?
This is what we call a birth cohort. So, for example, people born around 1960, they're one cohort. In that 1985 survey, they were in their mid-20s. By the 1995 survey, they're in their mid-30s, and so on. We can actually track this same exact group across all the different surveys over time.
And here it is. This is the real story. When we replot those exact same data points, but we connect them by birth cohort instead of the survey year, the picture completely flips on its head. For the 1930 cohort, the 1940 cohort, the 1950 cohort, for every single generation, the prevalence of disease Y actually increases as they get older. So we have two completely opposite stories from the exact same set of numbers. The simple snapshot view says the disease gets better with age, but the cohort view, the one that follows actual people through time, shows the disease gets worse. The reason for the paradox is that younger generations simply started out with a much higher risk of the disease at every age than the older generations ever did.
In epidemiology, there's a name for this. It's called the age effect. This is the genuine change that happens to you just because you're getting older. In our little mystery, the true age effect is that the risk of disease Y goes up.
And what tricked us? Well, that was the cohort effect. This is the incredibly powerful influence of the generation you were born into. It reflects all the unique things that group experienced. For disease Y, being born more recently meant you just had a higher baseline risk, and that completely masks the real age effect in a simple snapshot.
And there's actually one more piece to this puzzle, the period effect. This is something different. It's a change that hits everyone at a specific moment in time, no matter how old they are or what cohort they're in. Think about the invention of a new vaccine or a big public health campaign. It can shift the numbers for everybody all at once.
What's really cool is you can see these forces right in the data table. If you read across any row, you're following one birth cohort as they get older. That's the age effect in action. Now, if you read down any column, you're comparing different generations at the exact same age, and that is the cohort effect.
Okay, so this isn't just some fun, hypothetical brain teaser. This way of thinking has been absolutely crucial to solving some major real-world medical mysteries.
One of the classic examples comes from an epidemiologist named Wade Hampton Frost. Back in 1930, if you just looked at the data, it seemed like the highest risk for tuberculosis was for people in their 50s. But Frost realized that was totally wrong. As he put it, that older cohort had simply survived a period of much higher risk when they were young adults.
And this kind of cohort analysis has been a game changer. For TB, it showed the real danger was in young adulthood, not old age. For colorectal cancer, it uncovered a really worrying trend of increasing risk in younger generations. And for ovarian cancer in Mumbai, it helped researchers see a strong age effect, but not much of a cohort effect, which pointed their research in a totally different direction.
So, to make sure you don't get fooled by the data, it all comes down to asking 3 simple but crucial questions.
First, what is the true age effect? What really happens as people get older? Second, is there a cohort effect? Is the trend different for different generations? And third, was there a period effect? Did some big event happen in time that changed things for everybody?
By asking these 3 questions, you can separate these tangled up threads of time, and it lets you move past a really confusing and often just plain wrong first impression to find the real story that's hiding in the data.
And that leaves us with one last thought. This isn't just about health statistics. It's a whole way of thinking. What other big, important trends in the economy, in our society, in culture, are we totally misinterpreting just because we're not looking at them through the right lens of time?